Okay. This is addressed to ThinkTankedUSA. Okay, number 1. A. Again, you really need to get your facts straight, sir. Because there was a 36-hour shutdown and workers were installing phone cables for 36 hours, not for 6 weeks. Where do you get your figure for 6 weeks? Even if we use your totally fabricated figure of 6 weeks, I said 72 days, not 72 hours. So by my count, you're about you're still about 4 weeks, 2 days shy of the mark. Not to mention that there were only workmen reported in one building, i.e. World Trade Center number 2. That still leaves World Trade Center 1 and World Trade Center 7 unaccounted for. Even if we use the real figure of a power down of 36 hours, then we have to believe that the security systems feed off the same electricity as the rest of the building, and that there was absolutely zero security during that 36 hours. Okay. D. If we use your Fox figure of 6 weeks, not only do we have to explain why it's 4 weeks and 2 days short of the mark, but then we need to explain how they managed to bypass security and bomb-sniffing dogs in one of, if not the most secure buildings in the world. E. I'm sure you'll respond to D with the assertions that World Trade Center security was handled by Bush's relatives. That is a lie. Stratasec's interest in the World Trade Center ended in 1998. And they weren't in charge of security, they were in charge of upgrading the security system. They weren't in charge of the actual security itself. That would be John O'Neill, who lost his life on 9/11. And what's more, Marvin Bush left the company in the year 2000, and Wirt Walker Bush was not Marvin Bush's cousin, and there was no evidence that he ever was. That he was. Number 2. The NIST report did not involve 6 people. It involved, and I quote, some 200 technical experts, including about 85 career NIST experts and 125 leading experts from the private sector and academia. Okay. B. The extreme model, as you put it, was well within the given parameters. The NIST needed to use the temperature of 700 degrees Celsius to bring down the towers in their computer simulation. However, there were temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius at the World Trade Center. C. I will concede that the NIST report stopped at the collapse initiation. I don't know why that's a problem for anyone except for truthers who claim that the buildings fell at free fall speed. Because here in Realityville, the towers did not fall at free fall speeds. They fell at between 12.5 and 15 plus seconds, which is well below the free fall speed of 9.22 seconds, which would have been the free fall speed in a vacuum. In regards to the sounds of explosions, I mean, that couldn't have been explained by, I don't know, say the sounds of transformers exploding, bolts being popped off at high stress, steel beams cracking under high strain, or elevators crashing down into the lobby. You know, sounds you might expect to hear in a building that's collapsing. As to the eyewitness accounts regarding the explosions at World Trade Center 7, again, that couldn't have anything to do with World Trade Centers 1 and 2 collapsing. And if the explosion occurred 45 minutes before World Trade Center 7 collapsed, that must be the strangest controlled demolition that I've ever heard of. F. As to the collapse of World Trade Center 7 itself, the NIST is still finishing its report. However, it is believed that the World Trade Center 7 collapsed due to the combination of the raging inferno and a 10-story gash on the south facade, extending a third across the face of the building and approximately a quarter of the way into the interior, in a building which was designed in such a way that each outer structural column was responsible for sporting 2,000 square feet, or 186 square meters of floor space. Number 3. With regards to the supposed countdown, I take it you're referencing the Pullet comments made by Silverstein to the fire chief. If not, and there was an actual 10, 9, 8, 7, and so on countdown, I would love to see the video or audio evidence to support that claim. Now, first of all, the firefighters might not be psychics. But they were certainly experienced in knowing if a building was too dangerous to continue working in. Second of all, what is the more likely scenario? That the fire chief ordered his men, who were firefighters, not a demo crew, to destroy the building? Or if Silverstein, who was already distraught over the loss of life, told the fire chief to pull his men out so as not to lose any more lives? And third of all, did I just read you correctly? Or are you now accusing the FDNY of being involved in the conspiracy to murder their fellow firemen? I would love to hear you fuckers yell that one over your bullhorns down at Ground Zero. B. With regards to the news reports, which are supposedly proof of advance warning of the collapse of World Trade Center 7, I take it you're referencing the BBC report. First of all, I'll invite anyone who wants to Google that and take a look, because one can tell just by looking at it that it's been spliced. Because for some reason, someone has digitally erased the time that is always in the lower right or lower left hand side of the screen in a BBC news broadcast. But what is even more telling is that the .xml file at the www.archive.org site was edited on February 18th, which was coincidentally the day that the BBC 9/11 conspiracy was broadcast, which was a scorching commentary deriding the 9/11 truth movement. That file is associated with the actual file, with the actual downloadable file, a 1 gigabyte file called v08591-16.mpg. But the 1 gigabyte file itself contains no timestamp or any other sources identifying or authenticating information. Number 4. Since you brought up these things but refused to elaborate, I'll take you up on it. A. Dick Cheney was not involved with NORAD or the air traffic controllers on 9/11. He was not in charge of them, and neither were the Secret Service. That is a lie. If you want to challenge me on that, I have the evidence that those charges are a lie. Flight 93 was not shot down. It was brought down by the passengers, and we have the black box and the phone recordings to prove it. The really funny thing is that you claim that Flight 93 being shot down is proof of a conspiracy, and that the fact that Flight 77 that hit the Pentagon was not shot down is also proof of a conspiracy. Basically, it's a no-win situation with you people. You want it both ways. If you don't believe that a 757 hit the Pentagon, then you have to explain the following questions. Why the size of a 757 matches the initial size of the hole in the building, somewhere between 13 and 16 feet. A 757 is 13 feet wide/high. Why were there rims found in the building? Why did the rims found in the building match those of a 757? Why did a small engine? Why is there a small engine turbine outside that's been identified as an APU? Why has that same engine clearly been stated not to be a Global Hawk engine? Why were blue seats from a 757 lying on the ground in photos? Why does part of American Airlines fuselage logo is visible in more than one photo? Why were engine parts photographed inside that match a Rolls-Royce RB211? Why were structural components photographed in the wreckage that match the Boeing paint primer schemes? Why was a large diesel generator in front of the building that appeared to have been hit by a large heavy object? Why is that same large diesel engine outside spun towards the building, meaning that it could not have been a bomb blast or a missile explosion? Why did multiple eyewitnesses say they saw an airliner? Why did multiple eyewitnesses say they saw an airliner hit the Pentagon? And why were 60-plus bodies matching the passenger list and flight crew roster identified and returned to the families from the Pentagon wreckage? Number 5. I welcome the foreign trade of the America's agreement. I would go one step further in supporting the transatlantic free trade area as well as the trans-Pacific free trade area. I support open markets and free trade. I am for globalization. So take your protectionist paleocon fear-mongering bullshit somewhere else. Free trade does not mean relinquishing our sovereignty. As for NATO, the NATO treaty is an executively signed treaty, is an executively signed and Senate ratified treaty, meaning that according to the Constitution it is the supreme law of the land. I suggest you brush up on your Constitution, namely Article 6, which states, and I quote, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, and anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding." As to immigration, that's another matter for another time, but I will say that I have heard bad things in regards to the New Deal regarding illegal immigrants coming under the judicial jurisdiction of Mexico or some such thing. I heard a little something about that on the Glenn Beck show, but I can't really get into detail on it. If you care to elaborate, by all means, we can debate that. I have an actual immigration plan that I've outlined, which I'm not going to get into here, but I've discussed it on other forums before, so by all means, I welcome the debate. I support legal immigration. We need immigrants. I just want them to sign the fucking guest book is all. That's about it for me. That would be all.